The massive crawl ship entered Earth's orbit silently. Its metal hull gleamed under the sun as it positioned itself above the blue planet. Inside the command center, Admiral Voss studied the viewscreen with 4 cold eyes. His gray skin wrinkled as he frowned at the data. "These humans are even weaker than we thought," he said, turning to Ambassador Trell. "Low muscle density, fragile bones, no natural armor. Their strongest can barely lift twice their weight." Trell nodded, his ceremonial armor clicking as he moved. "Their technology is primitive too. They only reached their moon 50 years ago." "Perfect," Voss said. "Another easy addition to the Empire." On Earth, the United Nations Space Command gathered in their underground New York headquarters. Screens showed the alien ship holding position above them. General Wilson paced the room, his face tight with worry. "They call themselves the Crawl Empire," he told the assembled officers. "They control 30 star systems. They have technology we can't even understand yet." Captain James Reed watched the alien ship on the main screen. He was 40, with short brown hair and eyes that missed nothing. He had flown Earth's best ships, but this vessel made them look like toys. "What do they want?" Reed asked. "They say they offer protection," Wilson replied, "in exchange for resources and labor." Reed's eyes narrowed. "Protection from what?" "From them, most likely," Wilson said with a grim smile. 3 days later, Captain Reed stood in the UN Assembly Hall beside General Wilson. The room fell silent as Ambassador Trell entered with his guards. The Crawl stood 8 feet tall, with thick gray skin and 4 arms. Their guards carried weapons that hummed with strange energy. "Humans," Trell began, his voice translated through a device on his chest. "The Crawl Empire welcomes you to the galactic community. We offer our protection and guidance." Reed noticed how Trell looked down at them, not just physically, but with clear contempt. The Crawl spoke slowly, as if to children. "In return for our protection, we require only modest payments. Resources from your outer planets, workers for our processing centers, access to your oceans." General Wilson stepped forward. "And if we refuse your generous offer?" Trell's 4 eyes blinked slowly. "Then you would face the universe alone. There are many dangers for primitive species." The threat hung in the air. Reed studied the Crawl guards, noting their movements, their equipment. Something about their casual confidence bothered him. After the meeting, Reed was called to the president's office. She sat behind her desk, looking older than her 60 years. "Captain Reed," she said, "I'm appointing you as our liaison to the Crawl. Your background in both military and diplomatic service makes you ideal." Reed nodded. "They don't respect us, Madam President." "I know," she replied. "They see us as weak, as prey." "What are your orders?" She leaned forward. "Learn everything you can. Their technology, their weaknesses, their true intentions. Be helpful. Be humble." Reed understood. "And meanwhile?" "Meanwhile, we prepare, quietly." Over the next month, Reed met regularly with the Crawl representatives. He endured their condescension, their barely hidden amusement at human limitations. He watched as they began setting up bases on the moon, bringing in their technology and personnel. In secret meetings across Earth, scientists studied every scrap of Crawl technology they could access. Engineers began drawing up plans. Military leaders assessed options. And Captain Reed played his part perfectly. The respectful, somewhat simple human, grateful for Crawl wisdom. He smiled through their insults, asked naive questions, and all the while, his trained eyes cataloged everything. Weapons. The Crawl thought they were watching humans. They didn't realize how carefully humans were watching them. At night, looking up at the stars where Crawl ships now moved freely, Reed thought about the future. The Crawl saw humans as weak. They would learn their mistake, eventually. But for now, patience was humanity's greatest weapon. 6 months passed since the Crawl arrived. Their ships now filled Earth's orbit like metal stars. They built bases on the Moon and Mars with shocking speed. Admiral Voss watched from his command ship as human representatives arrived for what he called the assessment. "Let us see what these creatures can do," Voss said to his officers. "Though I expect little." Captain Reed stepped off the shuttle onto the Krull mothership. Dr. Emma Wells walked beside him, carrying scientific equipment. The Krull guards towered over them, making no effort to hide their amusement at the humans' small size. "Welcome to our humble vessel," said Commander Draz, his translator making his mocking tone even clearer. "Today we measure your species' potential." Reed nodded respectfully. "We are honored by the opportunity." The tests. In the combat arena, human soldiers faced Krull warriors in physical challenges. The Krull lifted massive weights with ease. They ran faster, jumped higher, and struck harder. The humans tried their best, but were clearly outmatched. In one corner, Dr. Wells quietly took readings with her instruments, appearing to simply record the humans' poor performance. No one noticed how carefully she studied the Krull physiology. "Your species lacks physical power," Draz told Reed. "How did you ever become the dominant life form on your planet?" Reed shrugged. "Just lucky, I guess." Next came engineering challenges. The Krull provided materials and problems to solve. They designed the tests to require physical strength and natural Krull abilities. Again, the humans struggled, using simple tools while the Krull completed tasks with their 4 arms and superior strength. At lunch, Reed sat with his team. "Keep performing just below your best," he whispered. "Show potential but not mastery." Dr. Wells nodded. "Their body temperature rises significantly during physical activity, and they avoid the cooler sections of the ship." Reed filed this information away. "Cold sensitive. Interesting." The final test was strategy. The Krull set up a war game, giving humans outdated Krull technology to use against their modern systems. To the Krull's surprise, the humans adapted quickly. They lost, but not as badly as expected. They learned fast. Draz told Admiral Voss privately, "Perhaps we should be cautious." Voss dismissed the concern. "They adapt because they must. They have no natural advantages. Without their tools, they are nothing." That evening, Reed and his team prepared to return to Earth. Commander Draz approached with his final assessment. "Your species has potential as servants," he said. "You follow orders well. You adapt to simple tasks. You will be useful to the Empire in limited roles." Reed bowed his head. "Thank you for your generous assessment." As their shuttle left the Krull ship, Dr. Wells turned to Reed. "I have everything we need. Their cellular structure, their technology patterns, even samples of their materials." Reed nodded. "Good, and they have exactly what we wanted them to have: underestimation." Back on Earth, in a secret facility beneath the Rocky Mountains, engineers worked day and night. They studied the Krull technology that Dr. Wells had secretly scanned. They tested new materials. They built prototypes. General Wilson walked through the facility with Reed, watching humans improve upon Krull designs. "How long before they realize what we're doing?" Wilson asked. "They won't," Reed replied. "They've decided we're weak. People see what they expect to see." In orbit, Admiral Voss sent his report to the Krull High Command. "Earth is ready for full integration into the Empire. Humans will serve well in mining operations. They pose no military threat. Recommend beginning resource extraction immediately." The humans intercepted and decoded this message within hours. In response, they doubled their efforts. The facilities beneath mountains, under oceans, and hidden in forests hummed with activity. Earth was preparing, not surrendering. As Reed looked at the prototype ships taking form in the massive underground hangar, he allowed himself a small smile. The Krull thought Assessment Day had been about measuring human weakness. They didn't realize humans had been measuring them instead. The attack came without warning. Krull warships descended on the Mars colony at dawn. Their weapons tore through the protective domes, exposing settlers to the thin Martian atmosphere. People ran for emergency shelters as Krull soldiers stormed the buildings. On Earth, the emergency signal woke Reed from a deep sleep. He rushed to UNSC headquarters, where screens showed the destruction. The Mars colony, home to 5,000 people, was burning. "They're calling it payment collection," General Wilson said, his face ashen. "They say the colony occupies valuable mining territory, that it's the price of their protection." Reed watched as Krull soldiers rounded up survivors. How many dead? At least 300. More missing. The president called an emergency meeting. World leaders gathered virtually, their faces grim on the screens around the table. "We must respond," said the European Union representative. "With what?" asked another. "Their ships would destroy our cities in minutes." Reed stood up. "We should appear to surrender." The room fell silent. "Appear?" the president asked. "Send me to Admiral Voss," Reed explained. "I'll offer our complete submission. More resources, more labor. I'll convince him we're broken." Dr. Wells, who had been quietly analyzing data in the corner, spoke up. "Meanwhile, we accelerate our plans." The president nodded slowly. "How long do you need?" 6 months, Wells replied. "Maybe less now that we have more data from their attack." Later that day, Reed stood before Admiral Voss on the Krull command ship. He kept his eyes down, his posture submissive. The Earth governments wished to express their deepest apologies for any misunderstanding, Reed said, his voice carefully controlled. "We had not realized Mars colony was to be part of our initial payment." Voss looked down at Reed with all 4 eyes. "Your apology is accepted. But remember, human, we determine the terms of our arrangement." Reed bowed. "Of course, Admiral. Earth is grateful for Krull guidance. We wish to offer additional resources as a sign of our commitment." Voss seemed pleased by Reed's submission. "Very wise. Your species may yet find a comfortable place in our empire." As Reed's shuttle returned to Earth, he received news from the underground facilities. The captured Mars colonists had activated their hidden tracking implants. Each one now served as a spy within Krull territory. Back on Earth, changes happened quickly but quietly. Military personnel disappeared from public view, reportedly assigned to Krull labor projects. In reality, they moved to the secret bases, training on new equipment. Dr. Wells worked tirelessly in her laboratory, developing weapons based on her discoveries about Krull physiology. "Their skin can't handle rapid temperature changes," she told Reed during a secure briefing. "And their vision is poor in certain light spectrums." Reed, now promoted to admiral, coordinated the growing resistance. Underground factories produced ships based on adapted Krull designs but sized for human pilots. Each incorporated Wells' discoveries, weapons that attacked Krull weaknesses rather than trying to match their strengths. The Krull, meanwhile, expanded their presence in the solar system. They established mining operations on several moons of Jupiter. They placed monitoring stations in Earth orbit. They believed humans were submitting, becoming the docile servants they expected. 3 months after the Mars attack, Admiral Voss received a disturbing report. Production at one mining facility had dropped. Equipment failures were increasing. He suspected human sabotage but couldn't prove it. "Increase supervision," he ordered. "Remind the humans of Mars if they need motivation." What Voss didn't know was that each equipment failure provided humans with more Krull technology to study. Each accident was carefully planned to look random while yielding maximum intelligence. In the asteroid belt, far from Krull sensors, the first human fleet took shape. Smaller than Krull ships but more agile, they incorporated everything humans had learned. Admiral Reed inspected the lead vessel, named Defiance. "How many ships now?" he asked his assistant. 500 ready, another 1,000 in production." Reed nodded. "Not enough yet, but soon." On his return shuttle, Reed watched Earth grow larger in the viewport. From space, everything looked normal. Krull ships orbited peacefully. There was no sign of the storm building beneath the surface, a storm the Krull had created with their cruelty, never realizing they were sealing their own fate. 2 years passed since the Crawl attacked Mars. Their presence in the solar system had grown like a cancer. Mining bases dotted the moons of Jupiter and Saturn. Processing plants floated in the asteroid belt. Transport ships moved constantly between these facilities, carrying resources back to Crawl territories beyond Neptune. Admiral Voss stood on the observation deck of his new headquarters on Titan. Below him, human workers moved like ants, operating heavy machinery in the methane snow. They wore protective suits against the cold that the Crawl found so uncomfortable. "The production is still below targets," said Commander Draz, studying reports on his tablet. "Push them harder," Voss replied. Humans respond well to fear. What Voss didn't see was the woman working at Mining Station 12, carefully placing a tiny device inside a control panel during her maintenance shift. Jane Miller had been a computer programmer before the Crawl came. Now she was officially a maintenance technician. Unofficially, she was part of the resistance. The device she installed looked like a normal circuit component. In reality, it collected data on Crawl ship movements and transmitted it in bursts hidden within regular system noise. Similar devices had been placed throughout Crawl facilities by humans who appeared broken but were anything but. Deep inside the asteroid Ceres, Admiral Reed walked through the largest of Earth's hidden shipyards. The cavern stretched for miles, carved by mining machines repurposed as construction tools. Hundreds of ships filled the space, each one built with technology that merged human ingenuity with stolen Crawl designs. "We have 12 fleet yards now," his assistant reported. 4 in the asteroid belt, 3 on the far side of the moon, 2 on Earth in abandoned mine systems, 3 more in the moons of Saturn, right under Crawl noses. Reed nodded. "Numbers? Just over 3,000 combat-ready vessels. Another 1,000 in final assembly." Reed stopped walking and turned to the woman beside him. "Dr. Wells, are the special weapons ready?" Dr. Wells looked different now. Gone was the academic researcher. In her place stood a hardened weapons designer with steely eyes. "The thermal disruptors work perfectly. The Crawl cannot function when their body temperature fluctuates too quickly, and the electromagnetic pulses target the specific frequencies their technology uses while leaving ours untouched." Reed smiled for the first time in months. "And they still have no idea." "None," Wells confirmed. "Their arrogance is complete. They believe the sabotage and equipment failures are just human incompetence." Back on Earth, things appeared normal on the surface. Crawl ships hovered over major cities. Crawl officials occupied government buildings. Humans went about their business, heads down, voices quiet. But beneath the surface, sometimes literally, Earth had transformed. Old subway tunnels became training grounds. Abandoned mines housed factories. Underwater research stations served as command centers. A message system using old-fashioned radio frequencies carried coded instructions that the Crawl never bothered to monitor. In his private chambers, Admiral Voss reviewed reports from Earth. Productivity was down again. More equipment failures. More accidents. He slammed his fist on the desk in frustration. These humans are either incredibly stupid or... He stopped himself. No, it couldn't be deliberate resistance. Humans were too weak, too fearful after Mars. He had seen their leaders beg for mercy. On the moon base Alpha, Commander Draz had begun to worry. Something felt wrong, but he couldn't identify what. Human workers completed their tasks, but machinery kept breaking down. Supply shipments arrived late. Small problems multiplied. He decided to increase security. "Double the guards at all facilities," he ordered. "Random searches of human quarters. Monitor all communications." But it was too late. The resistance had spent 2 years embedding itself throughout the Crawl operation. Every human worker was a potential spy. Every piece of equipment might contain hidden devices. Every Crawl order was analyzed and shared. In the darkness of space, humanity's fleet waited. Ships gathered silently behind moons, inside hollow asteroids, and in the shadow of gas giants. Their engines cold, their weapons primed. They waited for Reed's signal. The Crawl had 2 years to learn respect for humanity. Instead, they had doubled down on cruelty and contempt. Now they would learn their mistake the hard way. The Crawl base on Ganymede shone like a silver mushroom on the moon's icy surface. It was the smallest of their facilities, with only 200 soldiers and a skeleton crew of human workers. Commander Lecht considered it a punishment posting, far from the glory of larger operations. He was checking security logs when the alarms blared. "Report," he shouted into his communicator. "Unknown ships approaching," his officer replied, panic in his voice. "They're not responding to signals." Lecht rushed to the command center. On the main screen, he saw 5 small vessels racing toward the base. They looked primitive at first glance, but they moved with surprising speed and precision. "Scan them," he ordered. "Sir, the scanners can't lock on. They're using some kind of jamming technology." Lecht felt the first stirrings of real fear. "Raise shields," alert Titan command. Before his officer could comply, the first shots hit the base. Not the wild, inaccurate fire Lecht expected from primitive ships, but precise strikes that targeted the shield generators. Within moments, the base's defenses were down. "Impossible," Lecht whispered as the strange ships landed outside. Soldiers in unfamiliar armor poured out, carrying weapons that fired not energy bolts, but something that caused Crawl fighters to collapse, shivering uncontrollably as their body temperature plummeted. The entire battle lasted less than 20 minutes. The human workers, who Lecht had always considered docile, suddenly revealed themselves as trained fighters, attacking from inside the base while the ship struck from outside. As Lecht was led away in restraints, he got his first good look at the ships. They were human-made but incorporated Crawl technology, smaller, sleeker, and clearly deadly. "Who are you?" he asked the soldier guarding him. "Earth Defense Fleet," the woman replied calmly. "First Strike Team." On Titan, Admiral Voss received the distress call from Ganymede. He immediately dispatched a battle group of 10 warships, certain they would crush whatever pathetic resistance had appeared. "Probably just some human terrorists with stolen mining ships," he told Commander Draz. "They'll be dead before the day ends." When the battle group arrived at Ganymede 6 hours later, they found only the smoking ruins of the base. The attackers were long gone, along with all the human workers and every scrap of useful technology. As the Crawl ships began search patterns, urgent messages arrived from Europa, Callisto, and a mining station in the asteroid belt. All reported similar attacks. All were now silent. Voss stared at the reports in disbelief. Coordinate these attacks would require a fleet, a command structure. The humans don't have these things. We would know. Draz wasn't so sure anymore. "Sir, I think we should report this to High Command. Request reinforcements." "No." Voss slammed all 4 fists on his desk. "I will not admit to being outwitted by humans. Deploy half our forces to protect the remaining bases. The other half will hunt down these terrorists." But splitting his forces was exactly what Admiral Reed had planned for. As Crawl ships scattered across the solar system, they became easier targets. The human fleet struck like wolves, appearing suddenly from hiding places, attacking and vanishing before reinforcements could arrive. On his flagship Defiance, Reed watched the tactical display. Human ships appeared as blue dots, moving in perfect coordination. Crawl ships were red, increasingly disorganized as they reacted to attacks coming from all directions. "Europa base is secure," reported his communications officer. "All Crawl personnel captured or neutralized. Human workers liberated." Reed nodded. "Callisto team. Mission complete. Minimal casualties. They're bringing back 3 intact Crawl ships for study." Dr. Wells joined Reed on the bridge, watching the display with satisfaction. The thermal weapons are working even better than expected. The Crawl can't function when their body temperature drops just 10 degrees. Reed smiled grimly. 2 years they had us mining in cold environments they couldn't tolerate. Never occurred to them we might turn that knowledge against them. The bridge fell silent as a new message arrived. Read it, and looked up at his officers. Voss has requested reinforcements from the Krull Empire. A major fleet is on the way. Instead of fear, Reed saw determination on every face. They had prepared for this moment. The hidden shipyards had been working at full capacity for years. The Krull were about to discover what humanity was truly capable of. Send the signal, Reed ordered. All Earth Defense Forces to final positions. Operation Horizon begins in 48 hours. Across the solar system, human ships slipped away from their targets, regrouping at predetermined coordinates. The first phase was complete. They had bloodied the Krull nose, freed thousands of human workers, and captured valuable technology. Now came the real test. Could humanity's hidden fleet stand against the full might of the Krull Empire? Admiral Voss stood on the bridge of his command ship, watching Earth grow larger on the view screen. Behind him stretched the most powerful Krull fleet ever assembled in this sector. 100 warships, each carrying thousands of soldiers. Enough firepower to turn Earth's surface to glass. No sign of human defenses, reported his sensor officer. Their orbital stations are responding with standard protocols. Voss nodded. The human resistance had proven surprisingly effective against isolated bases, but now they would face the true might of the Krull Empire. He felt almost disappointed at how easy this would be. Open a channel to their leaders, he ordered. The main screen changed to show the face of Earth's president. She looked tired but calm. Madam President, Voss began, not bothering to hide his contempt, your species' pathetic rebellion ends today. Surrender now, and some of your people may survive as servants. Resist, and we will destroy every human settlement from Mercury to Pluto. The president's expression didn't change. The people of Earth have considered your generous offer, Admiral Voss, she replied, her voice steady. Our answer is no. Voss blinked all 4 eyes in surprise. Then you choose extinction. So be it. He cut the transmission and turned to his weapons officer. Target their major cities. Begin bombardment. Krull weapons powered up, ready to rain death upon the blue planet below. But before they could fire, a junior officer called out in alarm. Sir, multiple energy signatures detected behind the moon. Voss spun around. What? On the view screen, ships began to appear from behind Earth's moon. Not 5 or 10, but hundreds. They moved with perfect coordination, forming a protective shield between the Krull fleet and Earth. Impossible, Voss whispered. Where did they get so many ships? More alerts sounded as sensors detected additional vessels emerging from Mars' orbit, then from the asteroid belt, from the shadow of Jupiter, from hiding places throughout the solar system. Human ships appeared, their engines glowing blue against the blackness of space. On the bridge of the Defiance, Admiral Reed watched the Krull fleet with grim satisfaction. All ships in position, reported his tactical officer. Earth Defense Grid online. Open a channel to Admiral Voss, Reed ordered. When Voss's face appeared on screen, Reed allowed himself a small smile at the Krull's obvious shock. Admiral Voss, for 2 years you've called us weak. You've enslaved our people, stolen our resources, killed our colonists. This is impossible, Voss replied. You can't have built this fleet. These must be ships from other systems, other species. Reed shook his head. Every ship you see was built by human hands, with technology you taught us, though we made some improvements. Before Voss could respond, Reed gave the order. All ships, commence Operation Horizon. The human fleet moved in perfect synchronization, targeting the Krull ships with weapons specifically designed to exploit their weaknesses. Thermal disruptors caused Krull systems to freeze and crack. Electromagnetic pulses disabled their communications. Smaller, faster human ships darted between the massive Krull warships, which struggled to target them. In his command ship, Voss watched in horror as his mighty fleet began to crumble. Return fire, he screamed. Full power to weapons. The Krull ships fought back fiercely. Energy beams lashed out, destroying dozens of human vessels. But for each human ship lost, 3 more took its place, and the crawl weapons, designed to fight enemies of similar size and technology, proved ineffective against the smaller, more agile human craft. As the battle raged, Dr. Wells coordinated from a hidden base inside the moon. She monitored the effectiveness of each weapon, making real-time adjustments to counter crawl adaptations. "They're trying to recalibrate their shields," she told Reed over the secure channel, switching to frequency pattern Delta. Reed relayed the orders, and the human fleet adjusted their attacks accordingly. The battle continued for hours, but the outcome was never really in doubt. The Crawl, for all their physical might and technological advancement, had made one fatal mistake. They had underestimated humanity. As his ship shuddered under another direct hit, Voss realized the truth too late. These weren't the actions of a primitive species fighting in desperation. This was a carefully planned and executed military campaign, years in the making. "Retreat," he finally ordered, swallowing his pride. "All ships, fall back to defensive positions around Titan." But as the damaged Crawl fleet began to withdraw, they received an urgent message from their home territories. All available forces return immediately. Multiple systems under attack by unknown coalition forces. Voss stared at the message in disbelief. This wasn't just a human uprising. Somehow, while the Crawl were focused on Earth, other subjugated species had also risen up against the Empire. As his crippled command ship limped away from Earth, Voss looked back at the blue planet, surrounded now by its protective fleet. He had come to crush a weak species. Instead, he had awakened a sleeping giant. The massive Crawl armada emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system. 500 warships, the pride of the Empire, arrived to crush the human rebellion once and for all. High Commander Braz, Voss's superior, led the fleet personally. He had never failed in a military campaign and wasn't about to start now. "Status report," Braz demanded as the fleet regrouped. "Admiral Voss's forces have retreated to Titan with heavy losses," his lieutenant reported. "The humans control Earth orbit and have reclaimed all inner system bases." Braz dismissed the news with a wave of his hand. "Voss is incompetent. These are just humans. Prepare for immediate advance." As the Crawl armada moved toward Earth, they detected no resistance. Long-range scans showed human ships gathered around their home planet, as if cowering in fear. "They've consolidated their forces to protect Earth," Braz noted with satisfaction. "A primitive defensive strategy. We will crush them in a single battle." But as the Crawl fleet approached Mars orbit, something unexpected happened. Human ships began to appear, not just around Earth, but everywhere. They emerged from hiding spots throughout the asteroid belt. They rose from the surfaces of moons. They appeared from behind planets and from the shadow of the sun itself. On the bridge of the Crawl command ship, alarms sounded as sensors struggled to track the growing number of vessels. "How many?" Braz demanded, his voice losing its confidence. "Over 3,000 ships detected," his sensor officer replied, voice shaking, more appearing every minute. The tactical display showed the impossible truth. The sky around the Crawl armada was filling with human vessels, small, agile ships that moved with coordinated precision. They formed a sphere around the Crawl fleet, cutting off retreat paths and surrounding them completely. "Impossible," Braz whispered. "Where did they get so many ships?" On the Defiance, Admiral Reed watched the trap close. Dr. Wells stood beside him, her face showing the strain of the past years, but also fierce pride. "All fleet elements in position," his tactical officer reported. "The Crawl are completely surrounded." Reed nodded and opened a channel to the Crawl flagship. High Commander Braz appeared on screen, his 4 eyes wide with shock and anger. "This ends now," Reed said simply. "Your Empire's expansion stops at Earth." Braz regained his composure quickly. "You may have surprised us, human, but you cannot hope to defeat the Crawl Empire. Even if you win today, we will return with thousands more ships." Reed smiled slightly. "I don't think so." He nodded to his communications officer, who activated a second display. The screen showed images from across the galaxy, other alien species rising up against Krull occupation forces. Some Reed recognized from Krull data files, others were completely new to him. While you were busy underestimating us, Reed explained, we were making friends. Every species you've ever called weak is fighting back today. Your empire is collapsing as we speak. For the first time in his long military career, Braz felt fear. This is some trick, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. No trick, replied Reed. Just justice. You can surrender now, or we can demonstrate our new weapons. The choice is yours. Braz looked around at his officers, saw the fear in their eyes. The humans had outmaneuvered them completely. What are your terms? He asked finally. The Krull Empire withdraws from all conquered territories, Reed stated. All enslaved peoples are freed. New boundaries will be established by a coalition of all species. And if we refuse? In answer, Reed gave a signal. A small group of human ships fired their weapons at an empty section of space. The energy beams combined in a way the Krull had never seen before, creating a temporary rift that bent light itself. That was 10 ships, Reed said calmly. We have 3,000. Imagine what would happen to your fleet. Braz slumped in his command chair. We surrender. 1 month later, Reed stood in the new coalition headquarters on Mars, watching representatives from 24 alien species working together. Dr. Wells joined him, holding a tablet with the latest reports. The Krull are honoring the treaty, she said. Their withdrawal is proceeding on schedule. Reed nodded. And the coalition? Growing stronger every day. 17 species have formally joined. Others are considering it. Reed looked out at the stars visible through the massive window. They all made the same mistake, you know. They saw physical strength as the only kind of power. Wells smiled. Their mistake. Our advantage. As they watched, a ship landed at the spaceport below. Representatives from yet another world seeking to join the coalition that had toppled an empire. An empire that had fallen not to superior strength, but to underestimated intelligence, adaptability, and cooperation. The Krull had dismissed humans as weak until their fleet filled the horizon. They would never make that mistake again, and neither would anyone else in the galaxy.